Hello, my Mercurial mercenaries. Just a quick one for a Sunday night. This is an article I just noticed on the BBC News website. It's Helen Mirren saying that streaming is devastating for cinema. It was on the website a couple of days ago, but as is the case with me, it takes me a little while to cotton on. I had a bit of a disappointing day where I listened to, this isn't the disappointing part, I listened to an album by, doesn't matter who it's by, and then I suffered the indignity of the worldwide block process. I'm trying to get around it, but honestly, I'm only trying to promote bands. If I don't want to be promoted, I think I should just stick the album up their rectum. But here we are, and Helen Mirren says that streaming is devastating for cinema. I haven't read the full article, but I read the first couple of lines, and it was enough to give me food for thought when it comes to other topics that are similar to this one. Let me tell you what I mean. If we read the first couple of lines, all right, it says here, Dame, because she's a dame, that's important. And I like Helen Mirren. Her early films are quite good. Dame Helen Mirren has said the rise of watching films on streaming services at home is devastating for people who want to make films for the big screen. And the first thing I thought when I read that quote from her was, it's interesting how the film world, the movie world, Hollywood, is cottoning on to the idea of streaming changing the game. Whereas a very similar business, which is the music business, has had to deal with this for the last couple of decades. So I just kind of thought, yeah, about time. You're finally twigging. She says, it's devastating for people like my husband, film directors, because they want their movies to be watched in a cinema with a group of people. She said the communal experience of cinema is in danger of dying out. I've got a couple of points here, my mercenaries. Now, point number one, this idea of a communal experience at the cinema. She goes on to say here, an audience, a movie, you're all in it together. You're frightened, you laugh, you cry, all together. It's a communal thing. And she said that's beginning to disappear. I don't know, my mercenaries. I've never really had this communal cinema experience. When I go to the cinema and it's packed, to have this communal experience, you've got to have a cinema packed with people who experience film the same as you do. Like-minded people. You need a cinema packed with like-minded people. I don't have that, my mercenaries. It would be difficult for me to find a cinema's worth of like-minded people. Like-minded to me, my mercenaries. So what I'm actually left sitting with is a cinema full of not like-minded people who probably appreciate different aspects of the film. I'm usually with people who don't find the things that I find funny, and the sort of things that they find funny, I don't find funny. So rather than do that, this communal experience of the cinema that's been spoken about here, rather than that, I get, like, when you put magnets the wrong way round together and they do that. I thought, never shall the twain meet. Hang on, let me just ask the perfect tenor second, hang on. Dame Helen, 72, it's important. The 72 is important, right? She says the communal experience of cinema is in danger of dying out. An audience, a movie, and you're all in it together, she said. You're frightened, you laugh, you cry all together, so it's a communal thing, and that's beginning to disappear. I've just been saying to the people that I have never experienced this communal experience right now. When I watch American audiences at theatres, right, in cinemas in America, right, after a film's finished, and they've always got packed cinemas apparently, right, and when the film finishes, everyone stands up and applauds like a theatre. Now, I've never been to a cinema where anyone's ever applauded ever, and I've never felt any communal experience because usually I'm sitting next to a bunch of idiots and dickheads, and I don't share anything in my life with them. So this long-winded question to you now is simply because I know that I'm not the normal person, I'm not the average bear. I don't like the cinema particularly. I find having to sit next to these the general public an irritant.
I like
You love the cinema.
I do.
So I want you to now tell me whether you've ever experienced, is this common to have this communal experience? In your own time. I'll even put the microphone your way. Look, you can talk.
Oh, privileged. I think it depends what the film is, and it depends who it is that you're going to see it with. But I don't see that the theatre experience, the movie theatre experience, is going to suffer because of what Dame Helen Mirren is saying. Anymore.
Hang on, I'm specifically asking this particular point where she says the communal experience of cinema is danger of dying out. I'm saying that it doesn't exist anyway. I want you to tell me whether the communal experience exists.
People go to the cinema on their own. I have never been to the cinema on my own. I like to go to the cinema with friends because going to the cinema is more than watching a film. If it's only a film I want to watch, I Netflix, or I get a box set, or I do something. So
what do you go to so why do you, right, okay then, why do you drag me to the cinema? Why do you do that?
Because...
What's in it for you?
What's in it for me? Okay. A few hours out of the house. Normally a huge ice cream sundae that I didn't need, but I'll enjoy while I'm there.
There we go. Right. Okay,
and
so...
probably lunch and time with... Normally with you, but, you know, I do pick other friends occasionally. Right.
Okay, enough. You can leave now. Oh, you had another positive point as well before you go. I can't remember what it was, but you had something else you said.
I said I don't think her point is valid because that's like suggesting that since you've been able to get takeaway, nobody ever wants to go to a restaurant.
That's it. That's the one I liked. I liked that. So you can go now.
And so takeaway has never been easier. Just Eat, Hungry House, everything.
Yep.
Click apps to get takeaway doesn't stop people from going out.
Hungry Hippos and all that sort of shit. Thank you. You can leave now. Yeah, she did. She said that. I thought that was quite good. This isn't on this particular topic, but she said, we have takeaways and dialer pizza and dialer takeaway, but restaurants still exist. Anyway, another point she brought up there with this about this communal experience. So why'd you go to the cinema? And she said, you heard her. She said it just then. We go because of the food, and we usually have, like, we go to Nando's first, or you have this, or you have that, and sometimes, even though I'm the kind of person who hates watching a film while I can hear other people eating, it's now got to the point where if I'm being dragged to the cinema, and it's expensive, my mercenaries, the cinema is now extremely expensive. We're talking, by the time you've paid for your tickets and all that shit and you've got the food and everything, we're talking like 50 quid, my mercenaries, 50 quid. You know, you guys are into guitars and shit. You could buy a Harley Benton guitar for the price it costs me to watch a shit film in the cinema. But I'm now the sort of person who, you know, I think, just fuck it, I'll have the nachos and I'll have the big Coke and I'll have the popcorn. And I've become the person that I used to hate, but it's because my experience of the cinema is a kind of, it's more than just the film. But so I think even in attempting to explain whether the communal experience exists, I think The Perfect 10 actually failed then. And I'm not sure that Helen Mirren is describing the kind of cinema experience that I know. She may be describing the kind of cinema experience I hear about when I watch the likes of Angry Joe and Red Letter Media or whatever. When I hear about the experience of going to the cinema, probably, I admit, probably on the premiere night. So it happens and the actors are there and everyone applauds. My experience of the cinema is going to basically an empty cinema and watching a film. I think we watched The Greatest Showman the other day and it was pretty much empty. We were the only people there. I liked the film, but did I need the cinema? Went to watch Star Wars, again, weeks after it had been released, so it's not a fair comparison. Half empty cinema, but, you know, I mean, again, that's a bad example because the film stank. It stank the place right out. I certainly wasn't. I mean, I've never applauded anyway, but I certainly wouldn't applaud that hump of shit. So that was point number one. Oh, blimey. I had a point number two. What was point number two? Hold on. Point number two. I'm not sure if this was the original point number two, because I think I got waylaid there. But I wanted to equate this a little bit to the music industry. Now, I spent a good, 10 years or so being heavily involved in live gigging. And it was at a time that there were places to play. There were venues to play. And even during my time heavily in the game, places were closing down. But we're now getting to the point where I think in Britain there's like a pub closing every second of the day. So, even in a minute, there's 60 pubs closed around Britain. Each day, there's like 100,000 pubs closing. There used to be 10 pubs here on every street. Now there's 0. So there aren't places for bands to play. So in a way, you're lucky that there are even places still existing for films to play. I think film and music are intrinsically linked. Yet it's funny how new cinemas are still being built. There are no new music venues being built. All there are new housing estates being built to existing music venues that then manage to, through noise complaints, manage to get that venue closed down, even though the venue's been there for 100 years and the house is brand new. Someone moves into it, don't like the sound of that punk band. Close down, please. Council? Yeah, of course. 3 bags full. So it's a tricky state of affairs. And I feel sympathy for Dame Helen Mirren here in that she's probably right. But I'm tinged with bitterness from my experience of the music business, where there are still places for films to be shown. And then you've got the argument of whether anyone wants to see them or not. But the places where bands can play, they're dying out. Kind of wandered off track there. Next point of our argument now, look. The Oscar winner's comments continue a debate about services like Netflix, which has bought films like Annihilation and Mudbound for its own subscribers. Its business model generally bypasses cinemas, a fact that has unsettled many in the film industry. Netflix films have been banned from this year's Cannes Film Festival, which has introduced a rule saying all films in competition must have a cinema release. So now we're into the streaming thing. This is really, I suppose, where Helen's main point is. People can now stream. And each day Netflix will inform me of some new films that are available. And there's a few points here as well that kind of all intermingle. People now have setups at home. Not me, unfortunately, I wish, but they have huge flat screen TVs and 7.1 sound systems and stuff. They've got subs, they've got everything going on. They've got a cinema experience in their own home. And if they're people like me, the idea of having a cinema experience in your own home, not surrounded by the general public, is reason enough to never go to the cinema again. And does the fact that you can stream any film pretty much that you want to, is that the reason why less people... Hang on, what's her point here? Let me just check what her point is. Dame Helen Mirren has said the rise of watching films on streaming services at home is devastating for people who want to make films for the big screen. So I suppose her point here isn't necessarily that streaming is killing films in the cinema. It's the fact that people are making films wanting them to be put onto streaming services like Annihilation. So as a filmmaker now, I can bypass the rigmarole of trying to get my film put in the cinema, and I can have it on a streaming site instead. But in a way, this is the argument for the music industry as well. People will say now it's easier to be in a band these days because you don't need a record company. You can self-promote, you can self-release. You can release your album on Bandcamp, you can put it on Amazon, you can stream it, you can promote yourself on YouTube. People say it's a golden age now for people in bands and music in general. And then you'll read articles, like there was one the other day I was going to talk about, where it's saying the music from streaming has finally overtaken the physical format, and it's all rosy. And it's like, when you delve into the numbers and into the likelihoods here, it's not that rosy. It's not that rosy. Just because there's the opportunity to do something doesn't mean it's particularly achievable. And as someone who makes music myself and has a YouTube channel and has a Bandcamp page, and I'm very well aware that when you boil it down to its essence, no one gives a shit about my music. No one wants to buy it, and I'll never become popular, and I'll never make any money. And in a way, the same goes for the idea of streaming TV, and by that I mean YouTube channels. The idea of having a YouTube channel. I have the Mercurial #6 YouTube channel. I'll never make any money from this. And this is a bit of a fad, and one day I'll look back at this and think, I wasted my time. I'll be on my deathbed and I'll just think, oh my God, I wasted my time. I wasted my life. So the idea that there's this panacea, that there's this, like I said, a golden age for the individual just to have dreams and just to use the internet to fulfill your dreams through music, through being a personality. There can only be one PewDiePie. There can only be one Arctic Monkeys. Not everyone can do this. So the idea that just because films can now be streamed, that film directors are now making films that are going to be hugely popular on streaming services, it's, you know, for every annihilation, there's going to be some god-awful piece of shit that no one's going to watch. So I think it's such a complicated subject, and I think although Dame Helen Mirren might fundamentally be correct in that having any alternative to the cinema is not going to be a good thing for the cinema, I think we're losing sight of the fact that cinemas are still being built. And it may be because ticket prices are going up, but cinemas must still be making money. So they have the edge over the music business, where, yes, I went to a sold-out gig by King Gizzard at the Brixton Academy, but that isn't the norm. I would like, this was a bit of a filler to get over the disappointment of worldwide blocks and having to now speed up videos and hope that you can somehow slow it back down again, all that sort of shit. But anyway, my mercenaries, if you've watched this long, thank you very much. I'd like to hear your comments down below on what you think about Dame Helen Mirren's comments about streaming basically killing the cinema. I want to hear if you guys, my mercenaries, have a communal experience when you're at the cinema. And I'd like to know your feelings about if you think Netflix and Amazon Prime are a good thing for movies, films in general. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Thank you for watching. And over and